You thought it was a heartbreak, a loss, a painful ending. But what if it wasn't rejection? What if it was protection? In this video, we'll explore 5 subtle yet powerful signs that the universe stepped in, not to punish you, but to save your soul from a love that could have quietly broken you. Because sometimes, love ends when your soul starts to awaken. Sign 1. You are slowly becoming someone you didn't recognize at first. It looked like compromise, like patience, like learning to love someone through their mess. You convinced yourself that this is what mature love required: understanding, tolerance, devotion. You began bending, softening, explaining away the discomfort. You stayed quiet to keep the peace, ignored your intuition to avoid tension, and told yourself, this is just a rough patch. It will pass. But the truth is, something in you was fading. Your laughter became rarer. Your spark dimmed. Your confidence, your voice, your aliveness, they all became whispers in a room where his needs were always louder. And yet, you stayed. Not because it felt good, but because you thought love meant endurance. You became the version of yourself who could survive his inconsistency, who could absorb his moods, his silence, his absence. But survival is not the same as intimacy. And slowly, without even noticing, you stopped being you. That's when the universe stepped in. Because the longer you stayed, the more you vanished. And your soul didn't come here to disappear. It came to shine. When disconnection becomes divine intervention, the universe doesn't always intervene with lightning bolts or loud exits. Sometimes it whispers through your fatigue, through your growing disinterest in pretending, through the ache that lingers even in his arms. Because when you begin to forget who you are just to be loved, you're no longer in a relationship. You're in a slow erasure. And the soul won't tolerate that forever dot, so it orchestrates an unraveling. Not to punish you, but to protect the light you were dimming, just to be acceptable. It lets the relationship fall apart, so you can finally fall back into yourself. This isn't about blame. This is about remembering. Because when the person you loved required your disappearance, their exit became your soul's homecoming. The heartbreak was real, but so was the rescue. And sometimes, the universe loves you enough to take away what you think you need, to return you to what you've always been. Sign 2. You were always the one trying to make it work. The weight of carrying it alone, you made the effort. You initiated the conversations. You apologized first. You studied his wounds, memorized his moods, and gave more grace than you gave yourself. You didn't just love him. You carried the relationship. Every time things broke, it was you. Reached for the glue. And every time he withdrew, it was you who closed the space. And maybe you thought that's what love is. That if you just tried hard enough, gave deeply enough, healed him patiently enough, he would finally show up fully. But love was never meant to be a one-woman performance. And still, you played every role: partner, therapist, mother, mirror, until the exhaustion began to feel normal. Until you began to shrink your needs just to avoid being too much. Until your love became an act of self-erasure dressed as devotion. And still, you stayed. Still, you believed it could work, if only you worked harder. But real love doesn't need to be chased. It chooses you back. Asterisk, the soul's exhaustion was the final prayer. The universe watched you pour. It watched you wait. It watched you believe that love was something to be earned through endurance. And it knew, if it didn't end this for you, you might never stop giving to someone who never planned to give back. So it intervened. It let the distance widen. It let the conversations fade. It let the closure never come, because the lesson wasn't in his final words. It was in your final realization. You were not meant to carry a love that won't carry you. When you're always the one trying, holding, mending, it's not love. It's depletion. And the universe knows. When your heart becomes your own again, you will no longer tolerate love that drains. You'll choose the love that reciprocates, because you weren't born to prove your worth through persistence. You were born to be met with the same depth you offer so naturally. Sign 3. Your spirit was never at peace, asterisk, the quiet tension. You tried to normalize there was always something unsettled, even in the best moments. Even when he was sweet, present, trying. There was a lingering question in your chest, a subtle anxiety, a low hum of uncertainty. You told yourself it was your trauma, that you just needed to be more secure, more grateful, more healed. You convinced yourself the unease was your fault. Never his inconsistency, never the way he made you feel like you were asking for too much. But the truth is, your body knew. Your intuition was speaking. Your spirit, quiet but persistent, was whispering, "This isn't it." Not because he was cruel, but because peace doesn't have to be earned. Safety doesn't need to be negotiated. And love, real love, doesn't make you question if you're lovable. When you're always managing your emotions, second-guessing your worth, walking on emotional eggshells just to maintain connection, that's not love. That's self-abandonment. Masquerading as loyalty, asterisk, when peace is what the universe wants to return you. To the soul doesn't speak in ultimatums. It speaks in quiet knowing. And when that knowing gets ignored long enough, the universe begins to remove what you refuse to release. Because peace is your natural state. Not anxiety, not overthinking, not emotional chasing. You were never meant to feel unworthy in someone's presence. Never meant to shrink yourself for the sake of staying close. The ache you felt wasn't your wound acting up. It was your soul saying, "Stop settling." So the universe stepped in. And yes, it felt brutal. It felt like loss, like emptiness, like silence. But beneath the grief, there was stillness. There was peace. And that's how you know the removal was sacred. Because even through the heartbreak, something in you finally began to exhale. Sign 4. You were reliving an old pattern, not writing a new story, asterisk. The familiar pain that felt like love. He reminded you of someone. Maybe it was your first love. Maybe it was your father. Maybe it was the way you always felt. Almost seen, almost safe, almost loved. There's a reason the connection felt magnetic. Because it wasn't new. It was familiar. The way he pulled away just when you got close. The way you felt the need to earn every ounce of affection. The way your heart kept waiting for him to finally realize your worth. You weren't falling in love. You were falling back into a pattern. And your soul, brave, devoted, aching to heal, thought maybe this time you could fix it. Maybe if you loved hard enough, stayed soft enough, gave deeply enough, you could turn the wound into a win. But that's not how healing works. You don't rewrite the past by repeating it. You rewrite it by refusing to keep reliving it. Asterisk. When? Breaking the pattern is the real healing. The universe doesn't want you stuck in loops that mimic your earliest heartbreaks. It doesn't want you confusing comfort with chemistry. It doesn't want you replaying the same old script, just with different names, so it brings the pattern to a head. It lets the cracks widen. It lets the pain become undeniable, not because it wants you to suffer, but because it knows this is your moment to choose differently. The one who left wasn't just a man. He was a mirror. And his exit wasn't abandonment. It was interruption. A sacred interruption of a cycle it needed to end. You didn't fail the relationship. You fulfilled its purpose, and now the real love story begins. Not the one where you prove your worth, but the one where you stop trying to be chosen and start living like you already are. Sign 5. Deep down, you always knew it would end the truth you carried beneath the hope you felt it. Long before the goodbye, long before the distance, the silence, the final unraveling. There was a knowing inside you that never left. A quiet truth that whispered through the moments of joy. This won't last. But you stayed. Because your heart is loyal. Because your spirit is hopeful. Because you believed maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. So you held on. You prayed harder. You tried softer. You became what the relationship needed, even when it cost you pieces of yourself. And still, that knowing never left. It lingered in the pauses, in the tension, in the moments you were held, but never fully seen, because your soul knew what your heart didn't want to admit. This wasn't your forever. It was your awakening. When the ending was the answer to your silent prayer, the universe heard you long before you cried out, before the tears, before the begging, before the ache of letting go. It heard the part of you that was tired of pretending, tired of dimming, tired of calling this almost love your destiny. And so it answered, not with more time, but with removal. It ended what you wouldn't, not because you were weak, but because your soul was ready to remember its strength. The grief is real. The missing is real. But so is the freedom. Because now you get to build something that doesn't begin with fear. Now you get to love from wholeness, not from hunger. Now you get to choose what reflects your healing, not your history. He left, yes, but maybe he didn't leave you. Maybe he left your path. Because your path was always meant to lead you back to you. Asterisk, you thought you lost something sacred. But the truth is, you were being returned to yourself. The universe didn't take him away to punish you. It removed him because your light was dimming, because your worth was shrinking, because your soul was starting to forget its own name just to keep being loved. That wasn't love. That was a lesson. And you passed it, not by fixing it, but by surviving it. By finally seeing that a connection that costs your peace is not your destiny, it's your detour. Now there is space for breath, for clarity, for the kind of love that doesn't require your disappearance to stay. You're not broken. You're becoming. And this ending? It was the door the universe closed so your true beginning could finally begin. You're not behind. You're not late. You're right on time for a love that will meet you in your wholeness, not your wounds. Welcome back to your heart, to your voice, to you. Asterisk, if you're still here, thank you for your presence, for your courage, for staying with yourself through the ache and the remembering. This wasn't just a video. This was a mirror, a soft, sacred space for you to finally feel what you've been pushing down, to honor the love you gave, and to begin releasing the love that never saw you clearly. Now, I want to hear from you. Which sign resonated the most? What have you been holding in silence that you're now ready to name? Have you ever felt the universe pulling you out of something you thought you wanted? Share your truth in the comments, because your voice might give language to someone else's healing. And when we speak, we begin to set each other free. If this space felt like breath to you, like clarity, like something inside you finally clicked, subscribe. Like the video if it opens something real. And stay close, because here we don't just talk about love. We reclaim the kind of love that begins within. This space was created for you, for your awakening, for your healing, for your return. Welcome home.